Untitled Magic. Hello and welcome back. You can follow our post on Twitter and Facebook at DurtleMTG to stay up to date on our latest videos and other posts, and you can join a more robust discussion about Casual Commander at our blog, thedicebag.blog. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content to help the channel and the blog grow. Another way you can support the channel, though, is through our affiliate links in the description below. If you're looking for single sealed product or gaming accessories to protect all of that glory, please consider clicking the links in the description. Now, grab some spells, it's time to dirtle. Hello and welcome back to Durtle Magic. Today we are starting a new series called Why Though? This series is going to explore cards that maybe aren't in the mainstream consciousness or mainstream discussion of Casual Commander, and frankly might not be as good as they used to be, but are still plenty viable, at least in my opinion. Although some cards may not be. We'll get to those somewhere down the road. In this video, I want to start the series with Tariel, the Reckoner of Souls. This commander is probably pretty slow and probably outclassed by a few different things, but it still does something completely original on all its own, well, based on the mechanics of the card. So we are going to answer the questions why though, which is why use it, why is it good, where is it bad and why it might be able to see some play and why it should see some play. Well, first of all, let's just go ahead and read the card, pop it up on the screen here. Tariel is a 7-drop, that is 7 mana, with Flying and Vigilance. Their base stats are 4/7, and they have a tap ability that reads, tap, choose a creature card at random from target opponent's graveyard, and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. Alright, looking at the card, let's start with the obvious. 7 mana is a huge amount of mana to cast your commander for the first time. However, it can be done with other cards like Villa's Broker of Blood and Piru the Volatile, so while I don't think this will achieve any speed records even with ramping the legend out, this card is still plenty viable to cast. The problem with the card is it doesn't have anything that happens immediately or a way to protect itself, and I'm mentioning Broker of Blood and Piru here. Villas can kind of automatically get you cards if you have leftover mana or you get hit with something or any of Mono Black's effects, and Piru, if you kill it, it gives you a bunch of life and wipes half the board, so, you know. Okay, so moving on to the stats of the card. 4 power and 7 toughness really isn't that bad. It seems a little weak for today's design philosophy, but still pulling its weight. So it looks like this card can take a hit with that 7 toughness and can kill some of the mid-range flyers, or at least block some of the mid-range flyers. So that's pretty good. So you're not going to be like out of the game when you cast this card necessarily on board. I'm thinking Thryx the Sudden Storm, Goldspan Dragon, if somebody for some reason wants to trade that away in combat. But I'm thinking, you know, all those mid-range, like 4, 5, 6 power flyers, maybe a Spear of the Inscrutable, if somebody's playing that, a Supreme Judge, possibly even a Shadrick Silverquill if they're not too pumped up yet. So it can block a decent amount of things. And it comes down a little bit late to get some of them, but it's still decent. That said, she's still not doing anything when she comes into play. Let's go ahead and take a look at the abilities. The first we have are the keywords Flying and Vigilance. Flying, she's an angel, would expect an angel to fly. Vigilance also keeps her from tapping to attack, which works really synergistically with her second ability, which we'll get to in a minute. However, noticeably, there is no haste on this card. We can give it haste with things like Lightning Greaves, maybe Anger in the Yard, we are using red here, and we're probably doing a little bit of graveyard shenanigans just based on the commander alone. However, considering the downside the tap ability has, yeah, having haste on this card would have been super good. I will go ahead and say this was made in a much different age of Commander. As a matter of fact, this was included in the first batch of Commander pre-con decks, along with Kaalia, Riku, and Gav. So the design philosophy may have just been different then, and creatures weren't as powerful back then either. So I think we can give it a pass. It having haste, maybe even from Chainer, would be really good, and I do recommend that if you want to build Tariel. So on to what kind of makes this card unique, is that tap ability. It reads tap, choose a creature card at random from target opponent's graveyard. Put that card onto the battlefield under your control. There's a bit to unpack here, so let's start with the tap part. Obviously, this works wonderfully well with her Vigilance, so I'm glad Vigilance is there at the very least. We can attack, we can defend, and tap Tariel in response to something, or at the end of turn of the player before us, to go ahead and gain some kind of advantage. Moving along, we have the line, choose a creature card at random from target opponent's graveyard. So, the big elephant in the room with Tariel has always been that random part of the ability. Yes, it can backfire, especially after a 7 mana investment and a turn around the table. Yes, it can be completely useless throughout a game depending on what's in their graveyard and if they matter to you. I don't exactly think you want to recur a bunch of Steves a bunch of the time, although maybe you do. You know, if she gets killed, you need more mana. And yes, you can't target your own graveyard. However, there are also upsides to this ability. At the low cost of just tapping a creature, you get a creature out of somebody's graveyard. So you do get to pick an opponent, which I'll get to in a minute, but this requires no extra mana on your part, which means you're spending your next turn at 7 or 8 mana, potentially more, doing other stuff in addition to activating her ability. So this is just gravy on top of it. And it makes that jump from, you have to play this at 7 mana and wait a turn, to now I get to do other stuff and get something for basically free, which is a nice feeling. It also doesn't have the sorcery speed rider that we see with a lot of other abilities right now, or the once per turn ability. You can activate this possibly multiple times in a turn if you build the deck like that and steal somebody's whole graveyard. That way you don't have to be as randomly picky, I guess you could say. And the ability, because you're targeting the opponent, as long as they don't have Shroud or Hexproof, the creature in the graveyard, if it has Hexproof or Shroud, it does not matter. It does not matter if it has a protection ability, because you're choosing, not targeting. So with this deck, you want to basically increase the upside for Tariel's ability and minimize the downsides, but that could be a whole another video. Selective graveyard hate, though, is very good for the deck. Alright, off to the last part of the ability, which is just put that card that you randomly selected, or chose, I guess, onto the battlefield under your control. It does not have the sacrifice or exile at end of turn rider. It does not say until end of turn in any regard. You just get to keep the creature and whatever you got out of that creature. And of course, like I had mentioned just prior, you can use graveyard manipulation, and or if the graveyard's mostly devoid of creatures and you can manage to kill their second best thing on board, you get that right back. So this ability isn't as random as it seems if you build the deck to maximize its potential, but just the fact that you don't have to like lose it at the end of turn is a fantastic ability, especially for the low cost of just tapping the creature. Yes, you have to pay that 7 mana again, but it is basically free and she has vigilance. All of this said, Tariel, the Reckoner of Souls, is still a 7-drop commander. Being a 7-drop commander may actually work to her benefit rather than as a detriment, and let me explain. So you're playing a game of commander, board wipes are what? 4, 5, 6 mana? People want to commit something maybe to the board. If you're already playing a slower deck anyway with a 7-drop commander that may not come out till actually turn 7, maybe turn 8, somebody might wipe the board. You might wipe the board. As a matter of fact, I recommend you try to wipe the board. Yes, some people will have bigger creatures down later, but that's what spot removal's for, am I right? So what we have here is Tariel, I guess you could say, is on curve after mass removal and destruction to get something else back. If she was 3 mana or 5 mana, 3 mana wouldn't do almost anything at all unless you're doing like some kind of turbo wheel mill, right? 5 mana, maybe, depending on how fast your meta is. 6 mana, sure. 7 mana, though. 6 drops can be very powerful in Magic. Well, the whole cycle of Titans, really. Most of them are pretty good, even though Prime Time is banned. A number of really good dragons, a number of very good angels. They start at, like, they're just getting better. They start 4 or 5 mana now. I mean, there are tons of things you can recur in those brackets after something wipes the board. And I think that's where the 7 mana cost really shines for Tariel, is that you don't have that extra commander tax, you don't have to awkwardly play her earlier hoping for something. Most of the time, something should be dead for you to get back. So to summarize this all up, why would you use this slow 7-drop commander? Well, in my opinion, she certainly doesn't go in the 99, so you don't want her in there. I mean, you can put her in there, but you really want her out front and center to help you close out the game. I mean, there's so many ways to manipulate the situation in Tariel's favor. She herself as a card isn't that strong, but she can certainly lead a very strong strategy. And that's why I think she's still a viable commander today. There are no other commanders that really do this, and can potentially do repeatedly in a turn, like Tariel can. I hope you enjoyed this video, just a small blurb of mine. I just wanted to kind of explore the slower, less quote-unquote viable cards in Commander, even though I think the vast majority of cards might be viable somewhere. If you have any suggestions about what those cards might be, please leave them in the comments below and I'll take a look at them. I always read the comments, and I will maybe cover some of those cards. And also, if you want to share a critique on the video, maybe it was too fast, maybe it was too short, or maybe point out something I may have missed. I miss things, I'm only human. Hit those buttons to make sure you're notified of future videos, of course. Like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. And thank you again for watching. I'll see you later.